Forget the Tour de France, it's usually the one-day classics where the pro teams and riders pull out all the stops and their latest and most envelope-pushing cycling tech. And that's great because usually the rides that you and I do look a lot more like the dodgy lanes of Paris Roubaix than the perfectly smooth tarmac that the pros usually get to ride. So, without further ado, here's some ideas of what you can copy to optimize your bike for both speed and comfort. It'll come as little surprise that teams choose to use wider rubber than usual when riding races as rough as Paris Roubaix. You've no doubt heard this before, but we should be copying them. Yes, a 26mm tyre might be fastest on buttery smooth tarmac, but most of the time we're riding potholed B roads where something like a 32mm tyre, just like lots of the pros went for at Paris Roubaix, is probably the better compromise. In fact, plenty of riders opted for even wider than that. For example, Lotte Kopecky, Taco van der Hoorn and Fred Wright, the best placed Brit, used massive 35mm tyres and still averaged 40 km/h and more. It would be easy to think, but I'm not riding any cobbles, so I'll go for something narrower. Well, only 20% of Paris-Roubaix is actually cobbled, and so if wider tyres were that much slower, then I just don't think the pros would be using them. One thing that you should bear in mind before switching though, is how the tyres interact with your wheel rims. A bulging tyre is not only slower, but I also have a theory about it being less stable too, because the airflow can't pass over it as smoothly. That's probably why Tudor Pro Cycling and Uno X decided to use gravel wheels instead of their usual road-specific ones, citing that the DT Swiss GRC wheels provide an outstanding combination of aerodynamics and comfort when paired with wider road tyres. They've got 24mm internals. No, this doesn't mean we should all go out and buy gravel wheels for our road bikes, but if you want to be fast and comfortable, then you should pay attention to the internal and external widths of any wheel set that you're looking at buying. Why? Because there's lots of brands out there trying to sell you products that were out of date 5 years ago. It looks as though eventual winner Mathieu van der Poel left his prototype Shimano Dura-Race wheels in Flanders, but we'll be keeping an eye out for them in future races. One of the cheaper changes that Van der Poel made to his bike at Roubaix though was double wrapping his bar tape. This is no doubt to offer more protection on what is often considered the most brutal event of the road cycling calendar. If you too want to take additional punishment without wearing gloves, then this could be a quick and cheap fix. Continuing with the gravel theme from earlier, Lidl Trek riders such as Mads Pedersen and Jasper Stuyven have regularly been using this gravel group set throughout the classic season. In a recent press release, they said that the decision to go one by and use the SRAM Red Explore group set was easy. In fact, the discovery was kind of accidental when the team's technical support manager used his Trek Checkmate gravel bike in Luxembourg and realised that the cobbles were really quite similar to those of Paris-Roubaix. The 13-speed 1046 cassette apparently gives the riders access to the same gear range that they have on their 2x setups, and that the riders were so impressed that they'll never go back to 2x on the cobbles because it's just so good. Levin also added that Lidl Trek are the first ones using it, and that if anyone is doing it next year, they're just copying our idea. Think you're going to struggle to patent that one, Glenn? Can us amateurs learn anything from this? Well, yes, tailor your gearing to the riding that you do, not the riding that a bike brand thinks you're going to do, not the riding that a shop tells you that you do. If you do lots of climbing, then by all means go for a gravel group set on your road bike. Just blitz the flats, sack off the inner chainring and go one by like Josh Tarling at Roubaix. What works for you doesn't need to work for everyone. Now, this next one is something that would make you faster, but I hope doesn't get copied any more than it already has. Because putting a gravel group set on your road bike is one thing, but wearing an aero helmet to a cobble classic or your local chain gang, it will make you faster, but please no. 2025 has been a funny year so far, and one of the stranger sights has been seeing Visma Lease a Bike, amongst others, rock up to road stages wearing their time trial helmets. Maybe it's EF who's to blame for this. They kind of kicked things off with the POC Proton Air with its visor. Then CAS covered all the Ineos' riders' ears with the Nirvana, and now things have just hit an all new level of silly. I am all for aero gains, but seriously, this helmet pictured here on Matthew Brennan, what a ride by the way, just looks horrendous, and I really hope that the UCI steps in. I actually think that they have some grounds to as well. The longer the helmet, the bigger the moment arm. And I'm not saying that TT helmets are unsafe, but it's hard to imagine them being as protective as the more conventional looking lids. So no, this isn't a look that you and I want to start rocking around the local lanes, but if you do want to go faster, then looking at an aero helmet such as the Abus Game Changer, Specialized Evade 3, Trek Ballista or Van Riesel FCR helmet, it could be an easy way of saving a few watts over a more ventilated option. Other than Pogačar, who seems to be stubbornly sticking to his V4 RS, aero bikes have ruled this year's classics. Van der Poel and Philipsen on their Canyon Aero CFRs, Decathlon AG2 are opting for that RCR-F over the RCR. If you want to go fast, then it looks like this is the way to go. I think that a big part of this is how aero bikes can now fit wide tyres. You can fit a 32mm tyre in most of them, and that combined with refined frame layups make them a lot more comfortable than aero bikes of old. Should we be riding aero bikes? Well, if you want to go fast, then yeah, it does look like that. But luckily, nearly all performance-focused bikes, including quite a few endurance bikes, now have at least some aero design cues. So there's lots of options out there so you can be aero and comfortable, because that is what's fastest. And we're not as flexible as anyone doing the Roubaix. If you've been keeping up with the women's pro peloton, then you might have noticed this device on the wheels of Pauline Ferrand-Prévot and Marianne Voss's bike. It's a Grava adaptive tyre pressure system that basically allows you to change your tyre pressures on the fly. The idea behind it? Well, you can ride the road sections with a higher pressure and then drop them a bit more for comfort and control on the cobbled sections and the rough bits. Now, I highly doubt that at €3,900 for the reserve wheel set with this tech, many people will be rushing out to buy a similar system. But I do think it's an insight of where things might be going in the future, and it certainly looked like it worked for Pauline Ferrand-Prévot. For example, I'd love one of these on my gravel bike, have a bit more pressure for the road ride out to the gravel tracks, and then be able to drop the pressures without stopping. That would be cool. Hopefully the price will come down as the technology matures. So can we copy it? Yes, if you have very deep pockets. I think mainly though, this is just emphasizes the importance of tyre pressures. Use an online calculator, get them dialed in, and you will be faster and more comfortable. One of the biggest changes that you can make to your equipment to go faster on the bike is by changing your clothing. Now, whilst watching Paris Roubaix, I don't think I saw a single rider not wearing aero socks or aero overshoes. The other thing that everyone seems to be using, sleeves with this ribbing, just like this one here. Average speeds at Paris Roubaix have been getting faster and faster, and whilst we might not average 45 kph on our rides, aerodynamics are still well worth paying attention to. When you think about the fact that a set of £20 aero socks make a similar difference to upgrading from a climbing bike to an aero frame, then, well, they're easy to recommend. And as for the rest of your kit, well, we'd definitely make sure we have good fitting clothing before spending an absolute bomb on our bikes. It takes quite a lot to fluster Tadej Pogačar, but missing a feed seemed to do the trick. I know we love talking about bike tech, but the single biggest thing that you can do on your long rides to get around them quicker and more comfortably, fueling properly. The pros consume an absolutely obscene amount of carbs on their rides. Their pockets were bursting on the start line in Paris Roubaix with gels, rice cakes, and plenty of other goodies. Then there's the bottles, soigneurs on literally every single segment, offering drinks to try and ward off cramps and worse, a bonk. Now, we can't do that, and we can't eat as much as the pros either, but we can start eating before we think we need it, and we can make sure we take enough with us, just not neglecting this not so marginal gain. Let us know if you'll be copying any of these, as well as what you thought of this year's Paris Roubaix down in the comments below. As always, if you enjoyed this content, then please give it a like, subscribe to the channel for lots more of the latest bike tech, and we'll see you next time.